Yo, yo, yo. Good afternoon, folks. Snapzilla Gorilla, aka The Definition, hitting y'all with another video. This was very important for me, okay? And why it's important is because of what's going on in Italy right now. They done basically shut down Italy. But, they've done that in China. They've shut down parts of China. 16 million people have been quarantined. And for some reason, in Italy, this shit is blowing up, all right? This so-called coronavirus. But what I want to get into right now is the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. Okay, this is a crucial act that gives basically the government, the state governments, ownership over your own medical person, like your own medical situation. Like if they want, they can do certain things that will go against your rights, basically. Like medically, it's basically a medical martial law that they can impose on the people. And I just want to get into some details regarding this act, okay? So, shout out to Derek Williams. He brought this up earlier. And, I was going to do a video on it earlier, like a couple of days ago. But I didn't really have time to present all this stuff because it's going to take a minute. You understand what I'm saying? So, but I'm going to condense it. I'm really not going to get too far into it. I'm just going to give you some of the facts surrounding this act. And we're going to watch a video in regards to it that was done 10 years ago. We're going to listen. You guys are going to listen. I'm going to watch. So we're going to get into this together. Yeah, so we're going to get into this. Really crucial that we understand what this act does. Okay, now this act was implemented after 9/11 and after the anthrax scare, the so-called anthrax scare. They were sending anthrax to people and shit, So they came up with this act. Nosy ass wife. So they implemented this act. And mind you, this was a bipartisan bill that they pushed through. Anything that ultimately takes the powers from you, anything that improves the control that the government has over you, is always 9 times out of 10 a bipartisan bill. You understand what I'm saying? Now, some things like federal gun control, they have to ease it in. They have to ease it in there quite slowly. But just like this TAPS Act, the TAPS Act is bipartisan, going through Congress right now. I don't know what's taking this so long. It should have made its way to Senate by now. But that might be coming next. Anyway, first let's go over what this act is. Yeah. And we're going to go into a breakdown of what it actually does. It's kind of crazy. And something that we should be looking out for. Okay? Now, it's called the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. Okay? And it sounds like what it is. It is what it sounds like. It's powers. They're basically giving power you're giving more power to the government over your own health. You're giving them the power to decide what you want to be injected with, what you don't want to be injected with, how you can sit at home, when you can go outside, when you can travel. Let's say you want to leave a big city like LA or Chicago or New York, you won't be able to freely travel based on this act right here. Like you don't have to be sick. They'll tell you, this virus has a 30-year incubation period. You could be carrying it without any symptoms and not even know it. You can't leave because you can spread it around. And then they want to tell you they don't have enough test kits, all right? Or they won't allow doctors to test patients. Like some doctors are getting very frustrated by the fact that they can't test patients. They don't have enough test kits. You know what I'm saying? Then they're telling people, we might not get a vaccine for a year. And then you're hearing that What country is that? Israel. You hearing that Israel might have a vaccine within a few weeks? I don't know about y'all, but I don't want nothing Israel has to put into me. You know what I'm saying? I don't want no parts of that. So let's get into this. So this is the act. Now, I'm gonna go straight to the purpose of this bill. That's the most important part. You know, you have the title, the legislative findings, purposes, definitions. Don't need to know what the legislative findings are because it's obviously in play. They passed it. So, yeah, there's nothing we need to know about that. There's all kind of shit. Special powers during state public health emergency. That's in Article 5 of this act. And I put the act in the description. All right, you guys can see exactly what's going on. Control of roads in public areas. I'm going to have to get into that. Control of facilities, use of facilities. I mean, there's all kind of shit. Rationing, priority, distribution, compensation, destruction of property, protection of persons, medical examining and testing, vaccination and treatment. Vaccination and treatment, ooh, crucial. So, I'm going to get into the purpose, and then I think I'm going to jump into Article 5 of this act and go over some of these things. And maybe even Article 6, because some of it goes into Article 6. And there's quite a bit of information here. Dissemination of information, that can be important. So let's go. First, we're going to get into the purpose. I'm going to skip through the preamble. Reading is fundamental, my niggas. Let's see. Title, findings, purposes, and definitions. Let's see. That's all in Article 1. Title, findings, purposes, definitions. Let's see. Definitions. Okay. You done choking over there, babe? Maybe choking on some weed. So the purposes are this. A, to require the development of a comprehensive plan to provide for a coordinated, appropriate response in the event of a public health emergency. B, to authorize the reporting and collection of data and records, the management of property, the protection of persons, and access to communications. Access to communications. To facilitate, this is C, to facilitate the early detection of a health emergency and allow for immediate investigation of such an emergency by granting access to individuals' health records, health information under specified circumstances. Now, who determines what those specified circumstances are? Is this an objective? Is there an objective way to determine whose medical records get looked at? Is there an objective way, or is it going to be subjective? Who knows? You know, a doctor who's under these powers might say, "Oh, that guy's coughing over there. I want you to go grab him, see what's going on." What are we looking at here? Pardon me while I sip on my keto cocktail. Okay, let's get into this. D, to grant state and local officials the authority to use appropriate property as necessary for care, treatment, vaccination, and housing of patients, and to destroy contaminated facilities or materials. To destroy contaminated facilities or materials. And whose facilities are they going to be using? Walmart? Tarjay? I don't know. Let's keep it pushing. E, to grant state and local officials the authority to provide care, treatment, and vaccination to persons who are ill or who have been exposed to contagious diseases, and to separate affected individuals from the population at large to interrupt disease transmission. F, to ensure that the needs of infected or exposed persons are properly addressed to the fullest extent possible, given the primary goal of controlling serious health threats. To provide, this is G, to provide state and local officials with the ability to prevent, detect, manage, and contain emergency health threats without unduly interfering with civil rights and liberties. At the end of the day, do you really think that they care about your rights and civil liberties? Look at what the cops do from day to day. They violate your rights and civil liberties every day. And there's no Model State Emergency Powers Act enacted right now. There's no martial law, legitimately. But the cops do whatever they want to you. They don't care about your rights. Yes, they swear on the Bible to uphold the Constitution, right? To protect it, to defend it against all enemies, foreign and domestic. But they don't do that. They become the enemy, the domestic enemy of the people, and they violate your rights every day. Look what happened to the old dude in New York, right? The one where 8 or 9 cops dogpiled him and beat his ass. And he didn't do nothing, but he was holding his hands up, and they found out he was innocent of any wrongdoing. Just attacked him and beat his ass for no fucking reason, because they saw him smoking a joint. And when they ran up on him with their fucking guns out, or not guns out, but with their guns in their hip and their bulletproof vest on, jackbooted and heading towards you, they ran. Yes, they were smoking weed. They probably didn't want to be harassed or given a ticket for smoking weed, because even though it's legal there, you can still get a ticket for it. It's still an infraction. See what I'm saying? So they can fine you for smoking the weed. They just can't lock you up for it or give you a criminal case for it. You see what I'm saying? So they don't have to arrest you to get the money now. All they got to do now is get the money. They don't have to put you in a cage. But that's what they ended up doing to this cat anyway. Put him in a cage because he was questioning why he was being fucked with. And he asked what he did wrong. They never told him. They didn't tell him. They just fucked with him. For what? Anyway. So, now, some things that caught my eye in different sections. Let's see. Special powers during a state of public health emergency. Management of property. Let's see. Section 502. Access to and control of facilities and property. Let's see what's going on with that. 502. Bear with me, y'all. 502. All right. 502. Use of materials and facilities. Okay, so access. Let's go with section 502, the opening paragraph. Access to and control of facilities and property. The public health authority may exercise, for such a period of the state health emergency exists, the following powers concerning facilities, materials, roads, or public areas. Use of materials and facilities. To procure by condemnation or otherwise construct, lease, transport, store, maintain, renovate, or distribute materials and facilities as may be reasonable and necessary to respond to public health emergency, with the right to take immediate possession thereof. So they can immediately take possession of your property under a state of emergency in regards to health. Temporarily, or for however long they deem it necessary to keep possession of your property. But you could be a store owner. You can own a franchise. You can own a McDonald's. You can own this store, that store. They can take that shit over, take your property away, and use it for their medical purposes. And then they can deem it condemnable. Or they can condemn the building, which has to be then destroyed. Do they compensate you for this? I don't know. I don't think it mentions that here. Okay. Such materials and facilities include, but are not limited to, communication devices, carriers, real estate, fuels, food, and clothing. They can take possession of all that shit. All right. Use of healthcare facilities. To require a healthcare facility to provide services for the use of its facilities if such services or use are reasonable and necessary to respond to the public health emergency as the conditions of licensure, authorization, or the ability to continue doing business in a state as a healthcare facility. The use of the healthcare facility may include transferring management and supervision of the healthcare facility to the public health authority for a limited or unlimited period of time. Limited or unlimited? What was it? But shall not exceed the termination of the declaration of the state emergency health, a state of public health emergency. Now, who determines that? So they're telling you that we might not get a vaccine for a year. Okay? There might not be a vaccine for a year. So they can have this state of health emergency can last a year until they finally say, look, we got a vaccine for it, blah, blah, blah. Who knows when this thing is going to stop? This so-called coronavirus that's raging through the world. Who knows when that's going to stop? Control of materials. To inspect, control, restrict, and regulate by rationing and using quotas, prohibitions on shipments, allocations, or other means to use, sale, dispensing, distribution, or transportation of fuel, food, clothing, and other commodities as may be reasonable to and necessary to respond to public health emergency. Control of roads and public areas. Now this part is very important, okay? We're talking about the freedom of travel here. That's what we're talking about. Freedom of travel. To prescribe routes, modes of transportation and destination in connection with evacuation of persons or provisions of emergency services. To control or limit ingress and egress to and from any stricken or threatened public area. Stricken or threatened. So there doesn't necessarily have to be a large number of people infected in a certain area for them to say, oh yeah, we're going to limit egress and ingress because of the threat. The threat of such an emergency. Threatened public areas. The movement of persons within the area. What did I say? Your freedom of movement will be heavily restricted. Your freedom of movement will be heavily restricted. All right, pimpin'? All right, let's get into this. And the occupancy of premises therein, if such action is reasonable and necessary to respond to public health emergency. Who decides that? Who decides what's necessary? You? Little old you and me? Nah, pimpin'. We're talking about government-sanctioned doctors and drug dealers, nurses, anybody who will get in line and fall in line and go with the status quo and follow the directives. Order followers, they will determine all of this shit. Scary. Very scary. All right, listen, man. This is right here what we talking about. See, this when you vote, this is the type of shit you vote for. You're voting for people that will put shit like this in place. Like the Model State Health Emergency Services Act, whatever the fuck. The people that you put into place to rule over you, this is what they're doing. And not only did you put them in place to rule over you, you put them in place to rule over me. And I don't like that. And this is why I do what I do right here on YouTube. This is why I speak on what I speak on, because this is some double dog bullshit. You understand? Because I'm not saying that there can't be a real health emergency threat. No, no, no. I'm saying that they can say whatever the fuck they want. They can say, oh, this is an emergency. That's an emergency. They can tell you, oh, 6 people died here. 9 people died there. Oh, we're declaring a state of emergency. But, what? Because you say it's a state of emergency, we all have to be on lockdown? The lockdown ain't happened yet. Not in LA. But for what I'm hearing, it's soon to come. Now, let me tell you something. because y'all voted, because y'all vote, because y'all give people the power over you, this is the type of shit they do. Do you think they're going to be on lockdown? The people that put this shit into place, you think they're going to be on lockdown? No, they're not. You think their family's going to be on lockdown? Or do you think they're going to be able to freely travel to and from wherever the fuck they want to travel to? Like New Zealand, perhaps? Where they're killing off the wildlife that the indigenous folks live off of with them little green balls, right? They're poisoning the wildlife. Talking about they're trying to get rid of possums. Anyway, listen. Let me keep going. Some other shit that caught my eye. I ain't gonna go through this whole act. I'm gonna put it in the description. I'm gonna just go over the most important parts to me. Okay? And what I feel is the most important sections or articles of this fucking whole act. Let's see. All right. Protection of persons. Special powers during a state of public health emergency. Protection of others. More importantly, the most important thing to me, medical examinations and testing, vaccinations and treatments. Let's go over that. 602, 603. And then I'm going to get off into something else that breaks down exactly what this is in short order. And then we're going to get into a video. 602 and 603. Okay? All right. So, 602. Let's get into 602. Medical examination. First of all, let's get into section 1. Protection of persons. We're going to go over that. During a state of public health emergency, the public health authority shall use every available means to prevent the transmission of infectious disease and to ensure that all cases of contagious diseases are subject to proper control and treatment. Now, there are going to be experts out there, doctors, nurses, other type of status, police officers, firefighters. They love this type of shit. They love this. Whatever makes their job easier, whatever makes it easier for them to control you, they'll love it. They'll justify this. Oh, well, you don't want the disease to spread, do you? Oh, you don't want it to get out there. You don't want to cause a pandemic, do you? Why wouldn't you want something like this in place just in case? I'll tell you why. Because doctors kill over 250,000 people every year via malpractice. And there's never been a health emergency declared over that. They still get to do what they do. So the same doctors that kill over 250,000 people a year, which is more than the influenza, which is more than the coronavirus, which is more than any other disease. Medical malpractice by doctors. Arrogant, egotistical, can't tell them nothing doctors that kill over 250,000 people a year are going to dictate who needs to be tested and examined and, who can travel where and I'm supposed to trust them with this shit? I'm supposed to trust them with my freedom because they say there's a medical health emergency? Meanwhile, they're not going to tell you that if you take large amounts of vitamin C and vitamin D, you will be very well equipped to prevent this disease from taking you over. Or if you aren't immunocompromised, or if you're not old or very young and your immune system is on point, if your immune system is on point, you can pretty much fight any disease. Okay? Not saying you'll never get sick, Garfield. I'm saying that you have a better chance. You might get sick from this disease, right? You might get sick from the flu. And you can fight it. I got the flu late last year in December. It knocked me on my ass for 3 days, and I recovered. Boom, got over it. Felt like $100. You understand what I'm saying? Because my immune system was strong enough to fight it off without me going to the doctor, without me taking a bunch of pills. You know what I mean? I let my body do the work. I let the fevers happen. I went through the thing. I went through the shit because it started with my kids. My kids had the flu. We all had the flu. And it went through our family which it doesn't do very often, once every 3 years. Okay? I have been slacking on my vitamin C intake. That's why I caught it in the first fucking place. I was slipping on my vitamin C intake and my vitamin D intake. I was slipping. Simple as that. Then I started taking my vitamin C. Now I take my vitamin C and my vitamin D faithfully and in good order, and plenty of it. And I ain't had to worry about it since. I ain't had the cold since. I ain't had none of that. What I'm trying to tell you is there are things you can do to safeguard against diseases like this. The coronavirus is a flu, if you go by what they say. If you believe in the coronavirus as they say it is to you. Now, like I said, had the flu for a few days, got over it, boom, felt like $100. Even though I had the flu for 3 days, I was still able to go to work for like 4 hours. And then I had to take my ass home and lay down for a minute. So, went through my fevers, went through my shakes, you know what I mean, lost about 10, 20 pounds during that, but I was already losing weight anyway, because I even when I had the flu, I was still fasting, because guess what? The fasting helped my body recover from the flu. It helped my body fight the flu, because it didn't have to break down all kind of food at the same time, particularly sugar. I stayed away from the sugar. I didn't take any Halls. I did have Halls. It was the sugar-free Halls, all right? Or not Halls. Ricola. Anyway, y'all get what I'm saying. Yeah, I had the flu for 3 days. So, got over that shit. But before that, I hadn't had the flu. For like 10 years. It had been 10 years before that time since I had the flu. Well, you know what, then maybe 2 years or 3 years before that. 3 years before this last time, I had a fever. I had a flu for like a day, less than a day. It was like 8 hour. It's like an 8 hour flu, and I was good to go. But I was I had more vitamin C intake at that point. But other than that, I don't get sick. So, all right. Okay, Section 602, Article 6. Medical examination and testing. During a state of public health emergency, the public health authority may perform physical examination and or test as necessary for a diagnosis or treatment of individuals. Medical examinations or tests may be performed by any qualified person authorized to do so by the public health authority. B, medical examinations or tests must not be such as are reasonably likely to lead to serious harm to the infected individual. Or whatever. Yeah, we'll see if they care about that. The public health authority may isolate or quarantine, pursuant to Section 604, any person whose refusal of medical examination or testing results in uncertainty regarding whether he or she has been exposed to or is infected with a contagious or possibly contagious disease or otherwise poses danger to public health. Who determines that? Who decides that? Who determines if the person is going to be a danger to public health? Subjective doctors? I don't want to be tested. I don't want you taking my blood. I don't want you doing this and that. I don't want to rely on your little testing kit to tell me whether or not I'm sick. Because what if they tell you you're sick and you're not? What if they tell you you're infected and you're not? Mistakes do happen. They do misdiagnose people, don't they? What if they tell you that you're not sick and you are? If they tell you you're sick and you're not, then you're cooped up in a quarantined area with other sick people, best believe you'll be sick in a hot minute if they do that. Oh man, this is problematic. This whole shit is problematic. Okay, Section 603, vaccination and treatment. During a state of public health emergency, the public health authority may exercise the following emergency powers over persons as necessary to address public health emergency. Although in the beginning they told you without violating people's rights, while being sensitive, still being sensitive to people's rights, they just in liberties and civil liberties, they just told you that. But now here they're telling you, during the state of emergency, public health emergency, the public health authority may exercise the following emergency powers over persons as necessary to address a public health emergency. Again, who determines that? Who determines when it is necessary? See, necessity is the hallmark of every transfer of power, okay? They'll tell you, oh, it's necessary. Oh, we need to do this. We need to do that. This is emergency. So that they can snatch more of your power away. They will use necessity. We need to stop this disease from spreading. We need to get you vaccinated to make sure that you don't get the disease. We need to do this. We need to do that. We need to do what it takes to take your rights and your power and your civil rights away. That's what necessity. Come on. It's like I'm from the government. I'm here to help. Utter nonsense. Okay, now let's get into the vaccination thing. A. Okay. Section 603, subsection A. Okay. To vaccinate persons as protected against infectious diseases and to prevent the spread of contagious or possibly contagious diseases. 1. Vaccination may be performed by any qualified person authorized to do so by the public health authority. 2. A vaccine to be administered must not be such as reasonably likely to lead to serious harm or affect an individual. Okay, Pippin. 3. To prevent the spread of contagious or possibly contagious disease, the public health authority may isolate or quarantine. Pursuant to section 604, persons who are unable or unwilling for reasons of health, religion, or conscience to undergo vaccination pursuant to section. They're telling you that regardless of your personal beliefs, regardless of whether or not you want to get the vaccination, you can be forced to get this vaccination. That's what they're telling you. They can quarantine you. They can snatch your ass up and throw you in a quarantine zone somewhere if you refuse to get the vaccination. If you refuse to be injected by this poison that they're going to implement, that they're creating right now, they can throw your ass in a quarantine zone and say to hell with you, pimpin'. So where is it in here where it's protecting your rights? Where is it in here that they're telling you, okay, your rights will still be upheld, your civil rights, your civil liberties will still be protected? I don't see anywhere yet. Because of a medical health emergency? Come on, man. Miss me with that. Treatment. To treat persons exposed to or infected with the disease. Exposed to means that you probably were in the same motherfucking square block as someone who had been infected. That's what they mean by exposed. Like you were around someone who they feel was infected around the time that you were exposed to them. So that's subsection B. B1. Treatment may be administered by any qualified person. Okay, it's the same thing as with the vaccine. Treatment must not be such as is reasonably likely to lead to serious harm. Okay, they don't really care about that. That's just something they had to throw in there to make you feel good about life. 3. To prevent the spread of contagious or possibly contagious disease, public health authority may isolate. Again, all right, let's get into substance 604 because it's referring you to section 604 in regards to isolating people. Okay. All right. Let's look at the conditions. Isolation and quarantine must be by the least restrictive means necessary to prevent the spread of contagious or possibly contagious diseases to others and may include but not limited to confinement to private homes or to private public private and public premises. Now, let me ask you something. How do you do that? How do you quarantine somebody in the least restrictive means and prevent them from getting out and spreading the disease? How is it? What? Least restrictive? Does that mean you can leave whenever you want? Is that what that means? Least restrictive? To me, least restrictive means they're asking you, hey, look, man, can you stay at home right now? You can leave if you want, but can you stay at home? Can you self-quarantine so that you don't spread the disease? Oh, no? Oh, you're going to leave? Okay. Hopefully you don't spread the disease. Come on. No, it's not going to work like that. If they implement this shit and declare a medical martial law, you're not going to be asked to stay at home. You're going to be forced at gunpoint, most likely, and by threat of force. Oh, man. Get it together, people. All right. Okay. Isolated individuals must be confined separately from quarantine. Okay. The health status of isolated and quarantined individuals must be monitored regularly to determine if they require isolation or quarantine. Okay. So they not only want to keep the infected people, the quarantine people, they don't only want to keep them locked away, right? Which kind of makes sense. You keep them, you know they're infected for a fact. You tested them and you know for a fact they're infected, right? They're starting to display symptoms. So yeah, you keep them. That's what you do normally. Like when you're sick, when you have the flu, you stay your ass at home so that you don't go out in the world and infect other people. That's common sense, right? But they're not only going to keep those type of people, the infected people, locked away. They want to keep other people locked away. They want to lock them up and keep them separated and keep them confined until they determine that, okay, we don't need to confine them anymore. But who determines that? Not you, not me. I think y'all get the drift, man. It says here, isolated, quarantined individuals must be released immediately if they pose no substantial risk. Yeah. I mean, look. Y'all get the gist of it. This essentially gives them police powers to lock you up, to detain you, to confine you. They might not have a badge and a gun, but they will have the badged individuals, armed badged individuals, helping them do the confining and the detaining. We won't have a choice. There's no way you can control people like that without that element. See what I'm saying? Some mint in my drink. So, anyway, y'all get the drift. I'll put the link to this in the description, man. All right, now here's the ncbi.nlm.nih.gov. Okay, the U.S. National Library of Medicine, National Institutes of Health. So this is I'll put the link here too, but I'm going to pick out something very important here. Okay, the MSHEPA, the Medical Services, the Modern State Emergency Health Powers Act, empowers health agents with broad authority and simultaneously empowers public health agents with broad authority and simultaneously limits the exercise of power in time, duration, and scope to accomplish communal goals of abating serious public health threats. Coercive public health powers, particularly isolation. You hear that? Coercive. That means they're by force, against your will. When you coerce someone, whether by slick manipulation or by straight up aggression, that's coercion. Coercive public health powers, particularly isolation and quarantine, are exercised on a temporary basis. What's temporary? Define that. Only so long as are reasonably necessary and only among persons who justifiably may pose a risk to others because of their contagious conditions. Individual rights to consent to contest the coercive use of the medical health powers, even during emergency, are secured. See how contradictory this is? It says coercive public health powers, particularly isolation and quarantine, are exercised on a temporary basis only so long as blah, blah, blah. Okay? And then it says the MSHEPA empowers public health agents with broad authority and simultaneously limits the exercise of power and time. Nonsense. Listen. Then it tells you coercive public powers, particularly isolation and quarantine, are exercised. And then it tells you that individual rights to contest the coercive use of public health powers, even during emergency, are secured. How's that going to work? Wait until after we determine that there's no longer emergency. Then you can fight it. By then it's already too late. By then they have already violated your rights to the nth degree. They violated every single right that you had during this public health emergency. And so you can fight it afterward? Come on, man. They're not going to let you fight it at the time unless you fight. Ugh, that's nonsense. Anyway, that link is going to be in the description as well. Y'all need to take a look at this shit. Because, as usual, with many of these acts, with many of these laws, even with the Constitution, there's so much contradictory shit. And you know what? It doesn't matter because the people in power are going to do what they want to do anyway. You know why? Because we gave them that power by voting and feeling like we have something to do with the process. So we vote for them to create laws. And then we say, oh, that's the law, so we should just go with it. No, pimpin'. No. It doesn't work like that. See, when you act from a moral standpoint, it doesn't matter what the law says. If it's immoral, you don't follow that order. You don't follow that law. If it's moral, then you do the right thing. You do the right thing just because you want to do the right thing. And doing the right thing doesn't mean following orders that's going to violate other people's rights. So, let's see what this video is about. Let's move that shit. Fucking law. Alright. This 7-minute video.
Called me up one day and said one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event. And out of that event, we would invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we'd go after Chavez in Venezuela.
Democratic running mate Joe Biden warned donors at a fundraiser in Seattle Sunday night to, quote, gird your loins if Obama is elected.
Mark my words, it will not be 6 months before the world tests Barack Obama like they did John Kennedy. Watch, we're going to have an international crisis, a generated crisis. It's the middle of this.
Where would you start?
I would start with talking to the American people and talking to the world and conveying a new image of American leadership, a new image of America's role in the world. The problems will always be there, and they're...
I met Rockefeller through a female attorney I knew who called me up one day and said one of the Rockefellers would like to meet you. I made a video called Mad as Hell, and he'd seen the video and wanted to meet me and knew I was running for governor of Nevada. So sure, I'd love to meet him. And I met him and I liked him, and he was a very, very smart man. And we used to talk and share ideas and thoughts. And he's the one who told me 11 months before 9/11 ever happened that there was going to be an event. Never told me what the event was going to be, but there was going to be an event, and out of that event, we were going to invade Afghanistan to run pipelines from the Caspian Sea. We were going to invade Iraq, to take over the oil fields, establish a base in the Middle East, and make it all part of the New World Order. And we go after Chavez in Venezuela.
Democratic running mate Joe Biden warned donors at a fundraiser
I
in
actually
Seattle
started the
Sunday
video
night
over when I
to quote, gird your
maximized it,
loins
but it's okay.
if Obama is elected.
Mark my words, it will not be 6 months before the world tests Barack Obama like they did John Kennedy. Watch, we're going to have an international crisis, a generated crisis, to test the mettle of this.
Where would you start? I would start with talking to the American people and talking to the world and conveying a new image of American leadership, a new image of America's role in the world. The problems will always be there, and there's going to be a crisis come along on the 21st or 22nd of January that we don't even know about right now.
The following article I would like to share with you and like to get your feedback on. Let me know what you think about this. The October 22nd article source, AFP Global News, entitled Flying Syringe Mosquitoes, Other Ideas Get Gates Funding. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation awarded $100,000 each on Wednesday to scientists in 22 countries, including funding for a Japanese proposal to turn mosquitoes into flying syringes delivering vaccines. The charitable foundation, created by the founder of software giant Microsoft, said in a statement that the grants were designed to, quote, explore bold and largely unproven ways to improve global health.
The exact same thing I'm going to outline that is happening today happened back in 1976. The United States Centers for Disease Control mobilized, began purchasing massive mega doses of swine flu vaccination to inoculate all Americans if possible. Many, many millions of dollars were spent by our government and enriched the pharmaceutical cartels for this swine flu vaccination. What stopped it? Simply that the American people and public had warning voices given to them by honest medical practitioners. And the problem that Americans faced then, 5% of the people that were given this vaccine died immediately, and over 10% of those receiving this vaccine were crippled, maimed, and wheelchair-bound for life. We see there that this vaccine for the swine flu was deadly. It killed people and crippled people back in 1976. November 28, 2002, let's move forward. A rider tacked onto the end of the Homeland Security bill, amazingly, confers immunity from liability prosecutions to Eli Lilly, Sanofi Pasteur, and all other manufacturers of vaccines. Why would this be tacked on to the Homeland Security bill, the Patriot bill, giving complete blanket immunity from liability prosecution from Eli Lilly, once again, Sanofi Pasteur specifically, and other manufacturers of vaccines? Well, maybe we can set the stage here. There's many other instances where the World Health Organization, which is again largely funded by the Rockefeller Foundation, Ford Foundation, and the Rothschild Group in London, to absolutely control population for specific political purposes worldwide. There is no doubt in my mind whatsoever. I can go on for the next half an hour to show specific programs designed to kill large amounts of people, and it does this in every single case by means of vaccination introduction. So go forward to today, the first part of August 2008. Again, let me reemphasize, this Model State Emergency Health Powers Act that's passed in 39 states makes drug treatment and inoculation mandatory once a pandemic has been subjectively declared. I would just challenge anybody listening to this, Google on the internet or go to your public library. Find out if your state has in fact passed the Model State Emergency Health Powers Act. And if it has, I challenge you to read it. Download it, read it. And then try not to weep. It's the most incredible draconian piece of legislation that I'm sure you'll ever read. Unlimited quarantine without review is mandated under this law for those who dare to resist forced inoculations.
My concern with this particular type of project and research is that more harm can come from that than good, especially if it goes and falls into the wrong hands. If it were able to be successfully be developed, that could easily be turned into a weapon.
And mark my words, within the first 6 months of this administration, if we win, we're going to face a major international challenge, because they're going to want to test him, just like they did young John Kennedy. They're going to want to test him. And they're going to find out this guy's got steel in his spine.
Well, he went further than that, of course, in his comments. He said that you're not going to like what we do. You're not going to appreciate our response. Please hang with us, he said. Our poll numbers are probably going to be low after this happens, so please hang in there with us, because it's going to be bad. It may not look like we're doing the right thing.